Like, this is what I didn't know that they would actually try to do this. I didn't really think that they would. But the fact that she's saying, like, this is an obvious attempt to try at the behest of the Democratic leadership. They picked Paul Gottheimer for a reason. Like, they knew that he was going to do his best and be a little servant. He's very well connected, if you know what I mean, to Saudi Arabia and Israel, to try to break them in line, to support our allies. So try to break them in line, break them in, get them in line, have them doing what they should be doing, quote unquote. And that's why he was chosen. He was chosen as the Democratic Party's attack dog. That's just disturbing, really. To trying to get these two women of color in line, just disgraceful stuff. Yeah, so breaking down Ilhan Omar and their allies on the left has been one of Gottheimer's primary goals since the November elections. He's worked assiduously to carve out a role in Democratic caucus as something of an avenger, a centrist proud of his centrism and willing to take on the fight directly to the squad of freshmen trying to push his party in a progressive direction. He has a name for his hand-picked adversaries, the quote-unquote Herbal Tea Party. That's really cool there. Wow, that's so cool. Oh, my God. His definition of too progressive is startlingly broad. As the Democratic co-chair of the so-called Problem Solvers Caucus. You guys did a great job problem-solving, guys. Thank you very much. Your problem-solving. Let's give a round of applause for their problem-solving. It's been so great for this country. We've gone in such a great direction. Your bipartisanship, your bipartisanship used only to make this country, like, literally a worse place by the day. Like, the only problems you're solving are the ones that the elite have. Like, when the elite have the problem, they go to the Problem Solvers Caucus where Josh Gottheimer's there to sort it out from. I must be so glad to have you, Josh. Like, what a joke. Yeah, he led a push against Nancy Pelosi as she ran for speaker last year. And what do? They say, oh, yeah, go try and break down Ilhan Omar. They're dissenting voices against decades of Democratic and Republican consensus. They must be stopped. I don't care that you tried to lead an insurrection against me. Like, yeah, attack them. Attack Omar and Tlaib. They're dangerous, folks. They're dangerous. Like, yeah, he's consistently voted against the party, even on procedural motions, threatening to hand control of the House over to the GOP, literally. This spring, he was just one of a handful of Democrats who had a private retreat on Sea Island, Georgia, hosted by the American Enterprise Institute, mingling with Vice President Mike Pence, Jared Kushner, Mike Pompeo, and other Republican heavyweights. He was just one of 6 Democrats to break the party on a push for the DREAM Act in 2018. He publicly undermined the chair of the House Financial Services Committee, Maxine Waters, during a hearing in which he fawned over the CEO of one of the nation's biggest banks. That sounds like a great guy to primary here. Primary him, please. And this would be fun because he'd get pissed and say something probably pretty stupid. His boldest bid for international power, however, came amid the push for, internal power anyway, came for a push for a congressional war powers resolution to end the Saudi-led war in Yemen. As progressive in the House neared a historic achievement, Gottheimer organized behind the scenes to take the resolution down, in part by attempting to make it a referendum on support for Israel, and very nearly succeeded. The bill's supporters luckily out-organized him. That happens. People over money. Josh Gottheimer has money. They have the people, and normally, hopefully, if things are right, the people will win, and luckily they win. But yeah, Congress sent a war powers resolution to Trump's desk. He vetoed the resolution, rejecting Congress's efforts to hold him accountable. This is, again, the Senate and the House here. Last week's effort to override the veto failed the Senate in a 53-45 vote. Trump's rejection of the resolution, which is led by in the House by Ro Khanna and Senate Bernie Sanders in the Senate, and Mike Lee, was expected, but not for advocates who worked on it. Gottheimer's intervention was unwelcome but not surprising. It was counterproductive in a totally unnecessary way at a time when there was actually party unity on something progressive and historic, and that unity had been fought for a really long time, said Elizabeth Beavers, who's Associate Policy Director at Indivisible during the Yemen fight. This is a thing he's been doing consistently, helping to organize against progress. Stephen Miles, head of Win Without War, which worked closely on the resolution, was befuddled by Gottheimer's role. It's unclear what he's trying to do, but the impact is causing discord within the Democratic Party, making it harder to end an immoral and unconscionable war. He took an issue in which there's a clear right and wrong, and he came down on the side of the wrong. Yeah, and there's no other way to say it. Like, he came down on the side of war, he came on the side of violence, and he came on the side of just immorality and just negative thing. It's just that simple. Negative. Yeah. So, Gottheimer's rearguard action against the Yemen resolution and attempt to link the issue to Israel hasn't been previously reported, but perhaps the most aggressive move any Democrat has ever made against the caucus and the leadership this session, and the intensity with he approached it suggests that Gottheimer is working to establish himself as a leading player in the years to come. Gottheimer's intervention in the effort to end the Saudi-led war in Yemen takes on new resonance in the context of his long-standing links to Saudi money. Gottheimer is a protege of Mark Penn, a notorious Democratic operative who's been a leading cheerleader for Trump on Fox News now. Penn's companies, where Gottheimer has held senior positions over the years, have long been on Saudi Arabia's payroll. Gottheimer's first big job out of college was a speechwriter in the Clinton White House, where he worked closely with Penn, the president's pollster. The two have remained close since, as Penn became CEO of the consulting firm Burson Marsteller. He hired Paul Gottheimer as executive vice president. That's nice. Gottheimer worked at the consultancy firm where he reported directly to Penn until 2010. In 2008, he joined Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign as chief strategist, notoriously urging her to paint Barack Obama as un-American, and he took Gottheimer with him as well in that campaign. Burstyn Marsteller, as MSNBC's Rachel Maddow once laid out, has been a reliable voice for the worst of the worst. When Blackwater killed those 17 civilians in Baghdad, they called Burstyn Marsteller, Maddow said. There's a nuclear meltdown at 3 Mile Island. Babcock and Wilcox, who built the plant, they called Burstyn Marsteller. Bhopal chemical disaster that killed thousands of people in India. Union Carbide called Burstyn Marsteller. Romanian dictator Nicolae, I don't know how to say that name, Burstyn Marsteller. Government of Saudi Arabia 3 days after 9/11 called Burstyn Marsteller. Ugh. That is not good, folks, and this is the kind of guy who's been sent to do pretty much the dirty work for the establishment, and he is part of this new Democratic majority in the House. That should not and cannot stand, in my opinion. All right. Returning to Pete Buttigieg. He's not going to be offering his campaign, or his pretty much of a joke campaign at this point. He's not going to be offering his campaign workers health insurance. I mean, he's less a presidential candidate, and this is a great quote here from Libby Watson, and more of a collection of rich liberals' fantasies projected into a crisp white shirt. Is apparently the only major presidential candidate not to offer his staff health insurance yet. NBC News reported today. Buttigieg offered his staff $4,000 a month to buy insurance on the Affordable Care Act exchange, which NBC says is just enough for a single adult with no children to get a silver plan. Because you need a gold plan, folks. Many people we heard from at the end of the last year, their experience in the exchange paid for far more than $400. So it's really not enough. I mean, I guess if you're really pushing it, but yeah, still, it's not really going to cut it. But the campaign's reasoning for not offering health insurance is a telling example of why the current system is not good. So, Buttigieg's campaign currently has 49 workers, but has been staffing up rapidly and plans to hit the 50 mark imminently. Crossing this threshold will put us in position to get a good multi-state group plan, which we are currently negotiating, said Buttigieg press secretary Chris Meagher. From the worker standpoint, all this is meaningless. You're doing the same work whether your employer has 450 employees, but from the business standpoint, a campaign operates like a business in many ways, and that will allow them to avoid the expense of health insurance, and that's pretty great for them. So, yeah, just remember, when Pete Buttigieg doing everything he can to pretty much not help get his campaign workers here health insurance, I think that's a pretty important thing to remember. Just keep in context about the guy. Next time he talks about the essential nature of Medicare for all. All right, good news, ladies and gentlemen. Let's turn away from that bad news to some good news here. Chelsea Manning has been released from jail. So that's a positive thing. So she spent about approximately 62 days there, although she does not have to go back, after she refused to testify or pass test to WikiLeaks before a federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia. Attorneys for Manning said the release came after grand jury's term expired on Thursday. Her legal team has already been serving, or has already been served another subpoena. It demands she appear before a different grand jury on May 17th. Manning is mad not to answer any questions, therefore could be returned to custody as early as next week, so probably won't be that long. Chelsea will continue to refuse to answer questions, and we will use every available legal defense to prove that District Judge Chirenga that she has just cause for her refusal to give testimony. Manning was jailed on May 8th for contempt, a process crime for which she is not being punished. Rather, her time in jail is intended to coerce her into cooperating. The Fourth Circuit of Appeals rejected a motion filed by her legal team to have her set free last month. On Monday, Manning's attorney, Moira Meltzer-Cohen, filed another motion declaring that she would never be convinced to cooperate and that any further confinement would serve no legal purpose. Then, in March, U.S. District Judge Claude Hilton said the former soldier turned leaker turned activist would remain confined until she purges. I don't know what that means. That seems a little chilly. Her lawyers hope to convince the new judge that this will never become a reality. Manning's refusal to testify is an act of protest, she said, against grand juries in general, which she assured to have been used historically to entrap and persecute activists for protected political speech. So, yeah, I mean, she definitely has a point there. Immunity is forced upon grand jury witnesses, negating their privilege against self-incrimination and stripping them of any right to remain silent. The hearings are secret. There are no judges present, and the juries, comprised of 16 to 23 individuals, are not screened for personal biases. The rules of evidence do not apply. So, again, kind of your standard rights just kind of go out the window there, which is definitely pretty chilling. Yeah, so during her 2013 court-martial, Manning confessed to leaking more than 725,000 classified documents to WikiLeaks following her deployment as a U.S. Army intelligence analyst to Iraq in 2009. The documents acquired from a classified database known as CIDNE, or Sydney, include military reports, State Department diplomatic cables, and Guantanamo Bay detainee profiles, including those of the Tipton Three, a group of British Muslims who were imprisoned at the facility there between 2001 and 2004. That's from Gizmodo, giving the list on Chelsea Manning. Hopefully, she gets out of that one all right, and hopefully she continues to stay strong, because that's not a fun situation to be a part of at all. All right, we turn now to Donald Trump Jr. The president's beefy, stump-sitting son, has been subpoenaed to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee, reportedly to answer questions about his previous appearance, which he may have purged himself by insisting that he was only peripherally aware of the ongoing plans to develop a Trump Tower in Moscow. As you'd expect, they pretty much handled it in the most mature way, right? Don Jr., he runs a classy shop. If there's one thing about him, he just knows how to, he's a good guy. He knows what he's doing. He's just that simple. He knows what he's doing. He's got his act together, and he would never do anything like that, right? Wrong. Obviously, no lawyer would ever allow their client to participate in what is an obvious PR stunt for a so-called Republican senator too cowardly to stand up to his boss, Mark Warner, and the rest of the resistance Democrats in the Intelligence Committee, a source close to Don said in a statement. Okay, Don, we know you're in there, buddy. Apparently, Tom Tillis has said the former North Carolina's, whose fellow North Carolinian Senator Richard Burr was the one who, as chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, actually issued the subpoena, got in the action, tweeting, "It's the Dems who have made this all about policy, or politics anyway. It's time to move on and start focusing on the issue." Blah, 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 blah. All right, so yeah, White House Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney offered to take on the subpoena to CBS's Major Garrett on Wednesday, or his take on the subpoena. I have no opinion about it because he's a private citizen and not a member of the administration. All right, we got that. So far, a little bit sketchy. Let's see what Mulvaney also had to say. That being said, okay, he's got an opinion here. The fact that the president's son got subpoenaed from a Republican-led committee, and listen, I'm all for bipartisanship on intel committees. I think this is one of Adam Schiff's great failings, is to sort of politicize the intel committee. He's politicizing the intel committee in the House. That's ridiculous. Have you heard of the name Devin Nunes? Really? Yeah. So Mulvaney continued, "I have no difficulty with bipartisanship, but the subpoena of the president, to subpoena the president of the United States' son, and then not at least get a heads up, I thought, let's say bad form. Bad form. Perhaps the saddest outburst came from, in the form of a unholy MAGA fractal, in which Don Jr. retweeted his girlfriend, a new Trump employee, Kim Guilfoyle's link to an article on Breitbart, which had itself had been quote tweeted from a tweet from Rand Paul, which is Donald Trump Jr. retweeting Kimberly Guilfoyle's tweet about Rand Paul's tweet, slamming Republican quote-unquote Richard Burr for the Don Jr. subpoena. The collective writing on Don Jr.'s behalf comes as House Democrats voted to censure Attorney General William Barr for not complying with congressional subpoena. These people think they're above the law. They need to stop it. It's just that simple. It really is.